Hi, everybody. Thank you so much to Joan, who's a wonder at getting this all together month after month after month. Thank you, everyone, for coming out during your holiday weekend. I'm really excited. I always love reading with other writers because it's just incredibly enjoyable. So thank you, both of you. Okay, I am a very serious literary fiction novelist who got sort of really bunched up in the career part of my writing and the career failure part of my writing, and recently swerved toward flash fiction. And I refer to this as the youngest person here is my kid, who's heard me swear a lot, so I'm just going to say it. It was the get the fuck over myself phase of my writing, where I just wanted to let loose and not think of every piece as, okay, this is the next big thing. I just wanted to return to the joy of writing, and I have been successful in that. So I'm going to read you some short pieces, some really short pieces, and then a slightly longer flash fiction. So the shortest of these is 150 words, and the longest is about 1,500 words, which is the cap of what's considered flash fiction. This first one is a one-sentence story, and I wrote it as part of my challenge to write a story a day for 12 days while my child was at summer camp this summer. So this is one of those. In line for the rotor on the last night of the county fair, while Casey and the Sunshine Band plays a song her parents love, but she only knows from the recent Bud Light Seltzer commercial. That was the title. That wasn't the story. Okay. Here comes the one sentence of story. Oh, does everybody know what the rotor is at the county fair? Okay, people nodding. What's the rotor? What's the rotor?
I don't know.
Do you know which ride that is? Yeah. Jim, what's that? What was that?
It's got a pin and then spins around on that pin.
Yeah, pin spins around, and it's the one where you're like, it's spinning so fast you're sucked against the wall of it, and then the floor comes out, right? Okay. Kat doesn't want to go on the rotor, even though she knows it's safe to spin around and around, stuck to the walls and screaming after the floor falls away, because she is an honors student who understands things like centrifugal force, but also understands nausea and upset stomach already from the warm vodka in the parking lot, and the force that is not centrifugal, but red-faced and excited, her friends in front of her and behind her in line, drunk from the vodka and the twinkle lights everywhere and the fat heat of summer and the fried faces of the carnies and the cheap stuffed snakes they won at the fishing game, where everyone wins something. It just depends on the size of the prize. And the size they all got was small, but it didn't occur to them to feel unlucky. Thank you. So I found myself doing things in Flash that I didn't do in longer work, and one thing was to move toward absurdity. And this one was originally published online in HAD, but it's in the short story dispenser at the Eugene Airport. I don't know if everybody's back to flying yet, but the short story dispenser, right when you go up the escalator at the airport to the beat gates, it's right there. You press a button and you get like a free poem. Have people seen this? You get a free poem, you get a free story, you can pick local, you can pick adult or kids, you can pick international. It's really awesome. And so it does my heart good to think of any of my colleagues in the English department at U of O pressing the button and getting this story. The faculty began replacing their Zoom faces with horse heads in the online faculty meetings. At first, it was only the Old English faculty, so no one paid much notice. But soon it was the compositionists and the modernists, and finally contemporary fiction, with the LGBTQIA comic studies and the African American disability poetics. The horseheads were speckled and maned and dark and spotted. No one knew the names for types of horses, or even if they did, they stopped speaking in faculty meetings except for the department head, whose head was still the department head's head in his square. Thick-brimmed glasses, close beard. The rest of the faculty only wrote in chat, nay. Except for the rhetorician who thought himself clever, N-A-Y, nay. Brown and speckled horses galloped into lecture halls to talk about Dickens to 300 students who hadn't done the reading. A white horse struggled for a protracted amount of time with a PowerPoint and then gave up. A horse with a thick braid down his mane led a discussion section on Chaucer while students dozed off in the back. A miniature horse stood on its back legs to convey its excitement about Sula, and students got briefly excited. A fraternity tried to wrangle a cranky medievalist and slap a saddle on her broad, spotted back. There was outrage and protest. Janitorial staff got angry about all the manure. The environmental studies faculty made the case for fertilizer. The janitorial staff reminded the environmental studies faculty that the janitorial staff already began every day on campus at 8 a.m. If the environmental studies faculty wanted to make fertilizer, perhaps they could saunter in sometime before their 11 a.m. seminars on Tuesdays. Soon, students began reading David Copperfield, understanding for the first time it wasn't about the magician. The environmental studies faculty started waking with the backyard chickens to gather poop, occasionally catching sight of the medievalist, galloping across the broad fraternity lawn, a t-shirt with Greek letters slung over one ear, a shirtless, drunk boy on her back, ashamed to be happy, but happy. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read one now that has some visuals. I've been playing a lot with visuals. I wrote a story that was that's part Rebus puzzles, which I was going to pass out and make you guys try to solve them, but I decided not to do that. Instead, I'm going to read a story that braided throughout it is this ongoing list. But in order for that to make sense, I'm going to have my lovely assistant, my 13-year-old son Eli, come on up. Thank you very much. Yeah. I mean, I should also announce he's an award-winning writer as well. If anyone's interested in getting the prize stories from the Word Crafters Story Contest 2021, he won first place for his age group. Yeah. Okay. So it looks like this on the page. It looks like this on the page. Like it's a list interrupting the narrative, but Eli's going to hold up the list. Okay, you want to hold up the first one to see how high should we hold it? Can you see it?
I can see it.
Okay. And I'll be reading it too, just so you know when the list is happening. Okay. It's called All That Apply. The form said, what is the nature of your workplace injury? It said, check all that apply, which struck Anne as so generous she thought she might cry, though that had to be the painkillers. Anne wasn't normally a crier, and she knew not to get emotional in front of the nurses, because then they'd slow down her painkillers to show that painkillers were the reward for patients who weren't pains in their asses. Lifting, back. Lifting, hernia. Ladder, fall, sprain, or break. Ladder, fall, concussion. Heavy machinery, limb. Heavy machinery, trunk. M's job involved no lifting, no ladder, no heavy machinery. She imagined a trunk injury, a man's torso as a gouged piece of luggage. Wordplay had been wonderful to her as a girl, a kind of magic. She'd been a dumb girl, though dumb in a good way, or at least enviable now. Vehicle, cuts/lacerations. Vehicle, head trauma. Vehicle, ejection. Her job involved no vehicle. She pictured the man with a luggage for a torso ejected from a car landing on his head. She thought, I am amusing myself. She thought, barely. Job site, fall. Job site, falling object. Job site, collision with person. Job site, collision with vehicle. Job site, collision with other. M didn't have a job site unless an office was a job site, unless a desk. She read books and wrote summaries of the books and what she thought of the summarized books. Her employer told her to stop writing, "I think," at the start of her sentences, though what Em thought was her job. Her employer told her to stop writing "Dear Pamela" at the start of every email. She didn't need a salutation. This isn't Microsoft, her employer told her, which Em didn't know how to take. Microsoft had a campus. Microsoft fed employees in a slick cafeteria. Microsoft let people work from beanbag chairs in rumpus rooms. She either knew this about Microsoft or was making it up. She'd read it online, maybe, or read tweets from people who'd read it online. Fall, ice. Fall, staircase. Fall, sidewalk. Fall, job site. Em wondered what the difference was between job site fall and fall job site. She wondered if the redundancy was carelessness or a trick. She would not be tricked. The one thing she was good at was reading. She read carefully, even if she didn't know how to write an email, even if she was or was not fit for Microsoft. Also, she had not fallen. At the bottom of the form, other. The blank line was shorter than her pinky finger. She didn't know how to fit spilling the cheap employee coffee on her hand and then remaining incredulous of the pain even after running and running it under cold water in the employee's sink. Incredulous still of the blisters, fascinated by them, poking and poking for days. First with her fingernail, then a tine of her dinner fork, then the needle she had for her irreverent cross stitch. Okay, boomer. She enthusiastically ordered from Etsy and then enthusiastically ignored until the blisters popped one by one. The blisters oozed. Enough with the passive voice, her employer told her in a salutationless email. Em had continued going to work because she could read one-handed, she could write. The workplace injury, which she'd not thought of as a workplace injury yet, but rather one more unfortunate thing she'd done to herself and wished she could take back and could not take back, and in lieu of any possibility of taking it back, adopted the belief that if she did absolutely nothing about it, it would go away. We definitely need to disinfect this because my lip keeps hitting it. The workplace injury was to her non-dominant hand. In bed at night, the pain kept her awake, and she wished for antibiotic ointment, Tylenol, non-stick Band-Aids. Though these would have involved getting out of bed and walking down 8 flights of stairs and a half block to the bodega where the nighttime woman, cherry cheeks, enthusiastic English, knew her by sight, which sometimes warmed Em and sometimes made her egregiously lonely. Getting out of bed did not fit with her plan of doing absolutely nothing. Em was, if nothing else, a person who stuck to her plans. A plan was how she ended up in a city with a subway, an apartment like a closet, atop a vertical quarter-mile of stairs. At work, she tried to focus on the book she was reading for her employer because it was a good book, and most of the books she read for her employer were bad. Children died, but beautifully. Men made fools of themselves, but heartbreakingly. The world was an apocalypse, but hopefully. Stop with all that adverb, her employer came out of her office to say. Sorry, good job, that was a test. No, it wasn't really a test. Stop with all the adverb, her employer came out of her office to say, except her employer didn't say, because her employer was standing close enough to see. Oh my, her employer said, which may have been the first nice thing she had ever said to Em. God. Em waited for her employer to tell her what to do. Em waited hopefully. Get that, her employer said, taken care of. In bed at night, the pain made her wish. Personal vehicle, primary care doctor, emergency contact. In bed at night, the pain. Her stupid hometown. Its stupid McMansions. Its stupid Target. Its stupid parking lot for days. In bed at night, her narrow girlhood mattress, thermometer under her tongue, her dead post-boomer mother's hand on her forehead. There. She woke from never having fallen asleep to a meat thing where her hand used to be. She held the meat thing by the wrist and cried. The Uber driver told her, "Christ, and what the hell?" "I know," Em said, though she did not. Nothing ever hurt this bad had made her believe nothing would ever hurt this bad. She didn't know how coffees could do this. She didn't know how blisters could do this. She made involuntary noises over potholes as quietly as possible. Ack. The Uber driver asked her which hospital. Em didn't know which hospital. Em let the Uber driver pick. She loved the nurses, even the mean ones who lectured her. Ira was the meanest nurse's name, and Em said it every chance she could get. "Hi, Ira. Hello, Ira," because she was allowed salutations here. And what Ira was doing with the IV and ointment and the painkillers had turned the pain into something dull and far away. Her employee left an angry voicemail. Em had forgotten to call in sick. Em told herself she would call and explain. Em told herself she would call and apologize. Ira fed her pills in miniature plastic cups, followed by water in miniature plastic cups. She loved miniature anything as a girl. Miniature dinner plate and miniature toilet paper roll and miniature potted plant, arranging and rearranging in her dollhouse. She told Ira, "Dollhouse," aware of being not herself or more herself or contiguous to herself, from the pain and then the cessation of pain and then the return of pain in smaller and smaller waves that no longer made her cry. She was always grateful to be not crying. She asked, "That's how a girl's supposed to picture a life, Ira?" Ira did not answer. Ira delivered a lecture on wound care, a lecture on lucky you have medical insurance, any idea how much this little stint was going to cost her? A lecture on a girl like you, no reason to end up here. Em halfway sure she was falling in love with Ira. Ira thinking she was a girl like her, even with her meat thing and her excessive salutations and her dollhouse dreams. Ira was the one who gave her the form. She and Ira were having a fight in which Ira was correct on all counts and she was other. She'd always thought of herself as an all that applied, but it turned out she was a none of the above. Okay, that was okay. If she looked long enough at the blank line, she could make it blur into a squiggle. If she stared and stared, she could start to make it oral. She wondered if this was the painkillers or the low overhead lighting or something she had always been able to do had she bothered, or something anyone could do. She hoped it wasn't something anyone could do. She hoped she was special, though being special inside her own eyeballs was less than ideal. She'd have to explain it for anyone to notice. She'd have to tell Ira, "Ira, look what I can do." Do I have time for one more one-pager? Okay, and now this is when my trusted assistant is going to be let out of the room by my trusted husband, because I'm going to read, this is when you're going to lead him out of the room. Yeah. Because the most unusual thing that I've done in moving to Flash is written creative nonfiction, and Eli said, why do I have to leave the room? And I said, it's about me in my early 20s, and he was like, so? And I said, there's some things a child should know about his mother. And he went, oh, okay. Okay, this is forthcoming in Craft. Okay, it's called Walkable City. He was standing at the corner where we met every morning to walk to work because we were young and carless. I had gotten on a train and moved 2,000 miles for a walkable city. He had always lived here. John Denver died, he said. I thought he was joking. Not about John Denver dying, about how sad he looked. I made a joke. I can't remember the joke. We sometimes slept together. Oh, it's also good that I have my husband leave the room, too, because he hasn't had this yet. We sometimes slept together. We sometimes drank him out of sobriety and then slept together. I was young enough to hope for the entirely wrong things, mostly without knowing, and then when I did know, it turned out not to matter. Want turned out to be everything. I loved John Denver, he said. He looked like he might cry. He had a nose that broke up his face different from how my nose broke up my face. I loved the way his nose broke up his face. We crossed a bridge. It was a city of many bridges, a broad river splitting down the middle. I was not at home here, but I was not homesick. I was not at home either. I'm sorry, I said. I'd hurt his feelings. This was how it always went, me the one apologizing, everything backward. He would want me to get up after, put on my bra, put on underpants. He would want me to leave. His apartment smelled slightly pickled, his sheets like they might be damp. We were so close to feral. You can't stay, he said every time. Okay? Okay, I said, mostly to avoid the speech about a mistake, I shouldn't get the wrong, we can't keep doing, he didn't feel okay. The bisecting river churned beneath us. I don't remember its churning. I hardly remember the river at all. I am not one for rivers. I would end up moving from one small apartment to the next for 6 years, apartment to apartment to apartment, for a variety of unremarkable reasons. Rent increase, remodeling, mold. I lived in that city before television shows mocked it, before people protested for 100 days while the rest of us sat in our living rooms with our husband and kid and tweeted angry tweets. Country roads, he said, at home in his heartbreak. Many years later, I met an artist who walked every block of the city and made art from it, intricate, painstaking collages, a whole career. At some point, you make a choice, she said, her face kind, always layering her strappy dress with cool sweaters that made me wish. You decide, this is home. He sang the chorus as the bridge gave way to downtown buildings and their long shadows. I had sung this song as a child in summer camp. I knew the words but could not carry a tune. Neither could he, but he didn't care. He was always unashamed. Thank you.